I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they've forgiven my
The rental market in Boston is sky high. It's nearly impossible to afford an apartment even when you are working full-time.
I'm coming home.
HomeStart really gives the people who are experiencing homelessness, the people who are in fear of experiencing homelessness, the key to turning their life around.
I'm a longtime resident of Boston. I was fortunate enough to graduate from Dorchester High School in 1973 as senior class president. I was offered a scholarship to Boston College, Harvard University, and I chose the full scholarship there at Boston College. No one couldn't have told me that I wouldn't have been part of that best and the brightest era. I lost my scholarship at Boston College through no fault of my own. Some upper class students were irresponsible administering the scholarship programs. It really compounded my self-esteem issues, and that opened the door for drug use. I joined the Navy. I think my drug use really increased after the Navy. I was just lost in that addiction cycle, and so I was on the street and incarcerated. And in 2013, found my way to the New England Center for Homeless Veterans, and found my way through to HomeStart, and had my own independent housing. And HomeStart stabilization, which is still ongoing, lends itself to me having a budget, meeting my bills on time, saving, those basic things that probably a person that has a household takes for granted. They were there for me, and we did it together. It's enjoyable to be there for my mom and put her mind at ease to see me leading a responsible life. I volunteer for a faith-based agency that provides employment services for folks here in the city of Boston.
I had been involved in a domestic violence situation with the father of my youngest child, and we were living together at the time. It was a time when I left him, but I had no place to go, and I went to shelter housing, and I stayed through that program for about 9 months until I was able to find temporary housing, and then transition into finding full-time employment, and then able to sustain the rent on my own and be back to being on my own 2 feet. And then I ended up being laid off, so there was a situation where I was behind in rent. So I ended up going to eviction housing court. There was a possibility that because of the amount of my arrearage and the time of my arrearage, that I would probably look at giving up my apartment. And that would have been such a huge life-changing event for me to have to go through, for me and my children. They're old enough that they remember being in the shelter. We were in one room, in one bed, and we were only allowed a certain amount of bags, so I had to pick and choose what I was going to take with us. Going to housing court with HomeStart, it was the rainbow at the end of such a dark tunnel.
The prevention program works with folks who are facing eviction due to non-payment of rent. Just something came up and they got behind by a month or two and can't quite catch up, and we work with them to get them caught up to prevent them from being evicted. We assign them to an advocate who meets with them to figure out sort of what caused the problem in the first case, figure out budgeting, and then having a year of follow-up to really make sure that we're staying with them.
I'm now with a zero arrearage, and I'm now able to pay my bills on time. I am working in a roadside assistance call center. I'm getting my degree in social work and human services.
I think for a lot of people, HomeStart is kind of a sanctuary. It's an agency that really treats people with respect and dignity, no matter what their situation is, HomeStart's one place that they can come to for a variety of services, really, and sometimes just for, a listening ear.
I think the darkest day was when the police took me out of my house when my son was young, and I went to jail and wasn't able to be his mom for 3 years. When I went to prison, I lost everything, and part of coming out and reestablishing myself was like such a big burden. Like, I didn't know how I was going to navigate any of this. I met a female that came in once a week from HomeStart. She took me under her wing. She promised that, and did keep word, that she would work with me diligently until we overcame all of these issues that were in the way of my housing. In establishing a voucher for housing, I was able to move to Arlington, in the best school district, in the best neighborhood ever. I think we've been here 8 years. My son, he wouldn't have had half of the opportunities that he's had. He's on a pre-med track to be a PA, and he goes to Massachusetts School of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. And today, I have so many bright days.
Preventing homelessness before it starts is really what's best for everyone. On average, it costs like $30,000 to house a homeless family for a year in an emergency shelter or motel. And we know this model is working because 98% of people who we work with stay in their homes a year later.
When HomeStart gave me that thumbs up and gave me that hope and shine of light and let me know, we'll help you, we'll be able to stay and pick up where you were left off and continue with what you were doing with your family. So they didn't just change my life, they changed my children's lives. And educationally they're doing better, and socially they're doing better.
It's nothing like independent living and the dignity of having independent living. Most certainly, once again, my future is bright for me.
You cannot make a life without a foundation, and everybody needs a home. Everybody needs a home. Everyone's deserving of a home.
Forgiven my mistakes.